Hi, welcome to the recording of the Ruminant Nutrition webinar from Monday the 12th of March 2018. This webinar was presented by Desiree Jackson and made possible through the collaboration between Leading Sheep and Southwest NRM. This is clip 1 in a series of short recordings from this webinar and covers critical aspects, current condition and influences on income.
So I just wanted to talk about a few critical aspects of nutritional management of sheep and cattle in Northern Australia. So I'm talking about tropical grass-based pastures as opposed to temperate pastures. So just bear that in mind as I'm going through the slides. The first thing I wanted to talk about are, what are some of the current conditions and how do we manage for the rain that we've just had, which has been quite variable. There were patches where there was really good response to the rainfall and other patches where there's considerable pasture damage and not a lot coming through. And it is still early days, but there was quite a significant difference. And some of that could be related to the amount of rain, but also related to the amount of soil moisture. Given that we've had an extended dry period, this might be enough rain to kick things along, but not to produce any considerable amount of bulk. So, having low soil moisture is a real issue. And the other thing that will have a strong influence on the amount of pasture growing, particularly summer grasses, is the fact that we're now in March and all our tropical grasses are summer grasses, so they respond best to rainfall at higher soil temperatures. So we won't get the bulk feed that we normally would if we'd had the same amount of rain a little bit earlier this year. However, the quality of the feed should be quite good because we've had an extended dry period, which has allowed for organic matter to build up in soil, and protein in particular will be very high in the grasses initially, and then that will tend to fall away. So yield is going to be a big thing, and possibly you'll see a lot of herbage coming up in the diet. But what we need to think about is how much moisture is actually in that feed, and we have to discount for moisture, and it's quite significant in things like our herbage and our legumes. So when we're looking at intake by animals, we talk about intake on a dry matter basis, and we have to consider that that herbage that's out in the pasture, it's only about 25% dry matter. So animals actually need to eat about 4 times that volume to actually get a significant amount of dry matter. So the pasture will disappear rather quickly if we don't get some follow-up rain. There should be some nice legumes coming up as well. And that means that there'll be a higher protein level in the diet as well. So I'm seeing a lot of evidence of that. I guess the other thing to bear in mind is that there can also be the emergence of plant species which may cause poisoning, such as pigweed and button grass, and just being conscious of that if you're bringing stock home or buying animals in, that you might have a yard full of those species, which generally aren't a problem when there's a number of other species in the paddock. And if you do have any issues regarding that, I'm going to drop Jenny Milton into that. She would be the expert to go and see about that if you think you might have some issues, or one of your local stock inspectors. So go out and have a look to see what's actually growing out in the paddock. Just before I get onto this slide, I guess the thing that we have to be really conscious of, so everybody notices that animals lose a lot of body condition following on from rain, and there's always been the misconception that the feed that first emerges, because it's so high in moisture content, there's no value in it, when in fact those plants are actually the most nutritious in that growth phase than they are in any other growth phases, and that begins to decline. The reason animals lose so much condition after rain is, one, because they're burning off a fair bit of energy walking around the paddock trying to fill up, and secondly, it's very difficult for them to meet their dry matter intake requirement, which means that even though the quality of the feed's exceptional, they physically can't consume enough to get anywhere near their energy requirements in particular. So they really need to be managed well. And you know, if you are able to get out, like in a perfect world, you'd actually want to provide them with some form of roughage to keep the rumen ticking along and provide them with energy to prevent that weight loss from happening. There's really no other source of energy that you can actually give to them that they'll willingly choose to eat. They're herbivores and they choose to eat green grass over anything else. So what influences income received per adult equivalent or dry sheep equivalent? And this was based on some work that was done by Phil Holmes and Ian McLean. And some of those factors are, one, the fertility rate, the mortality rate, the turnoff, so the number of animals or the amount of wool that's produced per each breeding unit that's run on the property, and also the genetic potential. But what I've chosen to focus on today is what influences the fertility, and that is going to be very brief given the amount of time we have to cover that in, but I just wanted to touch on that today because that's really where our flock and our herd productivity start.
Thank you for watching this short clip from the Ruminant Nutrition webinar. If you have any questions or would like some more information, please visit www.leadingsheep.com.au.